Welcome to our neighborhood Unitarian Universalist congregation service on Zoom. We welcome you here from all over Ontario, as this new technology brings us emotionally and spiritually closer in times when we still need to stay physically distanced. My name is Peter Marmorek, and I'm your virtual service leader this morning, either from my home or from Cowpie Hill at Unicamp, if you're still willing to believe your eyes. Our musical director, Susanne Maziarz, and our minister, the Reverend Wayne Walder, are with us today, either from our new home on the Danforth or from his cottage at Saranac Lake, respectively. Zach Getchell facilitates our Sunday Child and Caregiver program and will share a video for all ages. We're happy to have Mike Kosowski doing our Zoom web hosting duties and Michael Polyani cutting and pasting texts in the chat window. We are deeply grateful to all of them. Some Zoom etiquette: just remember to stay muted unless you're speaking, keep chat open for readings and lyrics, and don't send chat messages to everyone during service. We now have closed captioning available. It's called Live Transcript. It's at the bottom of your screen, and you can click on it to start or stop it. This service is being recorded for the public, both on YouTube and on our new website. Joys and concerns or similar personal moments will be edited out. If you have privacy concerns, you can turn off your camera so that you're not seen or change your name. Cyberspace may seem antithetical to sacred space, let alone to mysticism. But with our combined focus and faith, we hope to bring them together this morning. Now we have nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. Shut off all those other apps that might distract you and be present with you. This is our threshold moment. Together, we enter sacred space and our service begins. As we come to light our chalice, each of you is encouraged to light your own chalice or candle, or consider holding your hands in the shape of a chalice. But either way, join with our choir as we sing.
We light this chalice to remember, to light the fire within our own hearts.
Now for our prelude. This is the sixth in a hopefully endless series of videos on which Susanne Maziarz and I have collaborated. Both of us find transcendent experiences by being in nature and by listening to birds or seeing birds. In this video, I tried to communicate that through the images, as Susanne did through the sounds. We both knew it was our preferred path into the world of the mystic. Divertissement 6. Mike? Good morning and welcome. And a particular welcome to those of you who are visiting us for the first time. Please stay around after service. In breakout rooms, we'll talk further about our personal experiences of mysticism. And if you choose not to go to a breakout room, our minister will be in the main room to answer any questions you might have about what Neighborhood UU is or what we do. Our mission here is to empower spiritual growth and shared action for the care of the world. I start by acknowledging that the Wendat, the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nations lived here before me and are living here now, together with Métis and Inuit. I offer my gratitude to our First Nations for their care for and teachings about our earth and all our relations. I've been fortunate to learn much from these teachings and will continue to work to honor them. I think the place we have to start with mysticism is the challenge of defining what we mean by the mystical. That's tricky because the mystical is beyond language. This isn't a new problem. About 2,500 years ago, Chuang Tzu, the Taoist mystic, plaintively asked, "Where can I find a man who has gone beyond words so that I can have a word with him?" Our approach today will be to use poetry, the branch of writing that is most practiced at going beyond words. Our scriptural reading comes from the poet and mystic William Blake, who wrote, "If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. For man has closed himself up till he sees all things through narrow chinks of his cavern." I suspect that in life, we all carve a way of seeing for the world that works for us, but that blocks out much of the world, blocks any direct feeling of being part of the infinite web of all being. Here's our first poem by Susanne Maziarz. I think it resonates with the prelude, Bird Walk. The true names of birds. There are more ways to abandon a child than to leave them at the mouth of the woods. Sometimes, by the time you find them, they've made up names for all the birds and constellations, and they've broken their reflections in the lake with sticks. With my daughter came promises and vows that unfolded through time like a roadmap and led me to myself as a child, filled with wonder for my father, who could make sound from a wide blade of grass and his breath. Here, in the stillness of forest, the sun columning before me, temple ancient. That wonder is what I regret losing most, that wonder and the true names of birds.
You know, the mystical is momentary. It happens in a moment, and insight comes and it begins to change us. It's happened to me many times, and I bet to you too. Once, Joan and I were discussing if we would have a third child. There were so many reasons not to. They outnumber us is the one that was most pressing for me. But the cost and the care of 2 children was overwhelming. I was so young, and I felt that having a third would be more care than I could offer. Then one day I was walking down the street, thinking about nothing. My mind was quiet in the rhythm of walking, the way you sometimes can be, in that flow of back and forth, footfall and foot rise. And a voice came from me, yet from a part of me I do not often access. And it said, "Don't worry, it will be all right." That's all. And after that voice, I agreed to have our third child with Joan. It became so easy. A mystic is anyone who allows the day-to-day cares of the world to fall away, if only for a moment, This allows the almost childlike perceptions that we have. Truly, I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. When Jesus said that, it's so similar to some of the things we ourselves have thought. And in this poem, with my daughter came promises and vows that unfolded through time like a roadmap and led me to myself as a child. Becoming a mystic is perfectly normal for a human being. In fact, many cultures try to script the mystic by encouraging us to go on retreat or a pilgrimage or attend a weekly Sabbath like our Sunday services. In every pilgrimage and retreat that I have led, people come to me and say things like, "That was the most powerful moment of my life." Or, "I never saw it that way before." Or, "I don't want to be angry anymore." Comments like these come from the mystic inside us. I wonder if I could respectfully ask you to listen to this poem again. There are more ways to abandon a child than to leave them at the mouth of the woods. Sometimes by the time you find them, they've made up names for all the birds and the constellations, and they've broken the reflection on the lake with sticks. With my daughter came promises and vows that unfolded through times like a roadmap and led me to myself as a child, filled with wonder for my father who could make that sound, holding your hands together like a wide blade of grass, and his breath. Here in the stillness of forest, the sun columning before me, ancient temple. That wonder is what I regret losing most. The wonder and the true names of birds.
Michael Pollan, in his latest book on psychedelics, says the mystical experience is typically described as the dissolution of one's ego, followed by a sense of merging with nature or the universe. But since it's our egos that do the thinking, dissolving them is hard to think about. And for the most part, our egos will resist any attempt to dissolve them. So the next question is, why? Why go to this trouble? We'll come to that. But first, let's meet the people we are. At this time in the service, we ask you to turn to your neighbor and greet them. So unmute your device, switch to gallery view, and offer a greeting to those around you. We will sound a chime to end. Now, take a moment to greet your neighbors.
Morning, friends.
Morning.
Good morning, Alexandra.
Morning.
Hi, Carmen.
Hi,
Good
Steve.
morning.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Gordon, Michelle.
Morning.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Hey, everyone.
Hi, Ron. Hi, Christine.
Hi there.
Hey, Gordon.
Hi, Jen.
Good morning, Susan.
Everyone from across Ontario.
And
Oh, hi, Dina.
Hi, everyone.
Ira.
Be Arthur.
Hey, Kate.
Hello.
Now, I invite you to join me in reading our opening words, which appear on your screen and in the chat. If you're on a phone and don't know the words or can't see the chat, just listen to my reading. Let us cast the circle of a sacred space here. Let us cast the circle of a cherished space here. A space of safety, a place of forgiveness, a place of love. If we want the world to change, we must craft, in our space and in ourselves, the seeds that grow a different kind of life. A life of graciousness, of creative intelligence, a place of life and spirit for ourselves and our families. Now, as we hold this place open to grace and insight, please join Susanne for our opening song. Susanne?
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be with you. I would like to lead us in a hymn that I just discovered this week in Singing the Living Tradition. It follows in the transcendental line of our ancestors in the celebration of connection with nature. It's hymn number 4, I Bring My Spirit to the Sea. I don't believe we've ever sung this at Neighborhood before. I don't know if our friends from other congregations have sung it, and I hope to bring this to Neighborhood more and more often. I find it beautiful. So I'd like to teach you the tune to start so you're encouraged to sing along with the recording. We'll just sing it on la la la. I'll sing a phrase, you sing it back to me, we'll learn it that way. So it goes. La 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 la. Let's try that together. La 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 la. Second phrase takes us to the sky. La 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 la. La 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 la. And la, a bunch of repeated notes. La 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 la. Let's try that. La 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 la. And to finish it off, la 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 la. La 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 la. In the video you're about to watch and sing along with, I go one time through the whole tune first to make sure that you've got it. And I hope you enjoy this hymn and bring it to your congregations wherever you are. Thanks, Mike. La 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 Spirit to the sea, I stood upon the shore, I gazed upon infinity, I heard the waters flow. And then there came a sense of peace, some whisper caught my soul, some ancient ministry of stars had made my spirit grow. I brought my spirit to the trees that loomed against the sky. I touched each wandering careless grace to know if God was nigh. Felt an inner flame that fiercely burned my tears. A bright eye rose from bended knee to meet the asking
Now, all the young and young at heart, please come up and focus on the screen because Zach has made a film to share with you. Mike, roll it.
Sometimes. I was sad all day, and why not? There I was, books piled on both sides of the table, papers stacked up, words falling off my tongue. The robins had been a long time singing.
Good morning. How are you doing?
And now it was beginning to rain. What are we sure of? Happiness isn't a town on a map or an early arrival. or a job well done, but good work ongoing, which is not likely to be the trifling around with a poem. Then it began raining hard, and the flowers in the yard were full of lively fragrance. You have had days like this, no doubt. And wasn't it wonderful, finally, to leave the room? Ah, what a moment. As for myself, I swung the door open, and there was the wordless, singing world, and I ran for my life.
So why go to all the trouble of having mystical experiences? Wayne has a poem to read about by David White about that. Wayne?
Sometimes, if you move carefully through the forest, breathing like the ones in the old stories, who could cross a shimmering bed of leaves without a sound, you come to a place whose only task is to trouble you with tiny but frightening quests, conceived out of nowhere, but in this place, beginning to lead everywhere. Requests to stop what you are doing right now and to stop what you are becoming while you do it. Questions that can make or unmake a life. Questions that have patiently waited for you, and questions that have no right to go away. I love that poem. Almost everyone asks under their breath, why bother with a mystical view of life? It's busy enough, life. Who cares about the way beautiful leaves tremble in the breeze when there are errands to do? Who cares about an insight when we're late for an appointment? I'm here to tell you it does matter. It matters a lot. It might make all the difference between a life with great delight or a life with bored busyness. Mysticism helps us stay in love with life, because when we fall out of love with life, when we lose our ability to laugh or cry or play, sometimes like a child, we lose part of the reason to live. Being a mystic matters because it opens the space for us to learn what we don't know about ourselves and the world. And this keeps us curious. It keeps us open to new experiences. It helps us create. And it keeps us in love with life. It reminds us we have a soul, and the soul's connected to the soul of the world, to God, to the past and the future. By touching the mystic, we can learn how to discover the world anew. We all know that when we don't do this, and I'll speak about myself, we can become depressed and lost. Depression is an epidemic as powerful as COVID, and the class of drugs like Prozac lose their potency over time. If we wish to keep ourselves in love with life, maybe we can do so by letting the mystic touch us to renew our perceptions and lay bare our heart and mind. Simple questions coming from our inside coming from that moment of the mystic. Questions like, where do our tears come from? And where are they leading us to? These questions can bring us to a new and uncommon awareness. We can allow solitude to open doors in our mind we have not yet entered. And the rooms we haven't entered in our minds have been there since we have been children. Rumi captures this in 10 words so easily. He says, our mundane existence is too small a room to live within. Whereas David White's poem reminds us, we need to come to a place whose only task is to trouble us with the tiny, 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 but frightening questions. So can I remind us to consider opening ourselves to mystical moments every chance we get, because our lives are not forever. And why would we limit them to small rooms of worry, expectations, and to do? While writing this, a cardinal flew to the window and looked at me to say, tell them not to wait. It's bigger out here. So I implore you, I invite you, and I would welcome you. Be mystics. Make a little time to feel life's blessing, life's blessing and healing, so that you can bless the world and heal the world. Let the mystic come to you, and it will. You know, in our service, we have a time for joys and concerns. It's a special time where we share a joy or a concern in our life. I wonder if you could do it quickly and short so that you could add the inspirational part of that. And what I mean by that is, I'm concerned about my son, Simon. And he has made me see the world in ways I could never have done so myself. So open your reactions tab at the bottom of the main window and raise a virtual hand if you would like to offer a joy or a concern with a little insight thrown in. If you're here on a phone without a screen, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. To speak, you have to unmute your device, so be careful to do that, and we don't need to hear you say, can you hear me now? We'll let you know. And make sure your camera's on. And once you've spoken, please remute your device. And I hope you'll respect the sacredness of the ritual and refrain from making announcements or telling stories. This is a cherished time in our community that can bring us closer in times that are separating us. Peter?
Thank you. I don't think there's anyone else. Wayne, would you like to introduce the meditation?
I wonder if you could just let the flute music that you'll hear carry you or hold you. Mike.
Now for our second chant, Fred and Phyllis. Fred? Phyllis?
So this morning we've been doing Gate Gate Paragate. You can see it in the chat. This next form we're going to do is close to what Buddhists have chanted in monasteries for time immemorial. It goes like this. Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhisvaha. Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhisvaha.
I wonder if maybe we can continue on. And I'm so sorry because Fred's chant, we had hoped to go on for about 4 minutes, allowing you to have time to be able to hear it and feel it and ride upon it. Peter, can we hear you now? No, we can't. So one of the things that Peter and I were going to do was to actually enter a dialogue. It's going to have to be a monologue, and I'm so sorry because Peter and I speak so easily about the mystic when we talk together, and it's so easy for us to lean on each other, both for the next idea as well as the past depth. This poem is by Parker Palmer. The plow has savaged this sweet field. Misshapen clods of earth kicked up, rocks and twisted roots exposed to view. Last year's growth demolished by the
How does one find a mystical experience? As some of you know, about 25 years ago, I came to a shamanic tradition, which involves sweat lodges, vision quests. Until COVID days, I'd been doing sweats at least 6 times a year, and I hope to start doing them again. In a sweat lodge, I access answers to questions in my life that my rational mind can't solve. I believe these answers have always been inside me, but are inaccessible to my logical mind. The heat, the dark, the medicine teachings, all clear the clouded doors of my perception, and then I can see the answers. Something that abstract needs a specific example. In March 2018, about 6 weeks after my wife Diana suddenly and unexpectedly died, I went to a sweat lodge to try and find an answer to how I could carry on, something I was pretty unsure of how to do at the time. In the heat and dark of the sweat lodge, what came to me were 2 things. The first, that I needed to embrace and accept Diana's death fully. I'd been trying to hide from the pain, to minimize it. The only way out was through it. The second insight was realizing I needed to accept that I was in a time when the void was more dominant, a time when I knew much less than I was used to about who I am, and was much less certain about where I was going, and that it was okay to be in that place. I needed to accept being where I was in order to be ready for a different future. Was that answer already somewhere inside of me? Probably, but I needed to clean those doors of perception to see it. I had been plowing to unearth last year's reasons. The farmer plows to plant a greening season. Wayne?
You know, one of the things that's most difficult, I think, to allow oneself to be part of the mystic is to let go of the expectations and the memories of who we used to be and who we think we are. Peter Parker's poem is so relevant for me because I too have spent so much time rehearsing what I've done or what I hope to do, that the fabric of my life is filled with to-dos. And this can make me forget to touch the mystic, the sacred, the otherworldly.
I don't think, Wayne, that this is a problem that's limited to just you and me. All of us have all these pressures on us and all these to-do lists. There's a lovely quote I often think of by Upton Sinclair. It's difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it. That's so true for us in so many ways. We don't have jobs that encourage us to go and explore the mystic, and we need to find our own path there.
Even the religious life makes us think that the expectations that occur in the past will be the ones that we find in the future. And our faith tradition that talks about truth being as important right now and as discoverable right now as it was in the time of Buddha or Muhammad or Jesus is part of what we have to remember.
So if that truth is within us, and I really believe it is, what is it that makes it so hard for us to say, okay, this is worth exploring. I'm going to go and find something about this. Why do we hold back so much, Wayne?
Living a life is hard. It takes so much of our energy, we all know it, to live a human life. There are so many things that we need to just do to keep ourselves alive. It's so difficult or even dangerous to let that go sometimes. But I mean, when you talked about being in the sweat lodge, Peter, being able to let go of the grief and the fear, that courage is what's required if we're going to open ourselves to the mystic.
I agree. And for me, it's really about letting go of that isolation, that we are all intrinsically isolated. There's me and there's the world outside of me. And it's the mystic path that lets me connect to the universe rather than being isolated within myself.
Yeah. I think that if we can take that step of courage and open ourselves up a little bit and let our minds go a little bit, and this is not only from us individually, but us as communities, both of faith and of politic and of social action, if we can open our minds a bit and our hearts a bit, even though I completely admit how scary that is, I think we will find those things that not only open us, but bind us together.
Thank you, Wayne. It's been a pleasure talking to you this way.
Thank you, Peter.
This is a time of isolation. And in this time of isolation, let's not forget that all of our congregations, both the Unitarian and the United Church who are joining us today, are living entities. And like all living things, they need nurture and sustenance. If you contribute by pre-authorized withdrawals, we thank you. As we contribute to the life of our communities, we affirm our lives within them. There is no way to pass around a virtual basket, but please consider writing a check or making an e-transfer to the congregation of your choice. The link for Neighborhood is in your chat window now. You can click on it. It'll take you to our donation page or go to your own denomination's donation page. We will now pause for a few seconds and music will play.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift, which we are called to use. to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Thank you. Before we have our closing chant, I had thought, why are we having the same chant 3 times? And then I remembered that lovely quote by T.S. Eliot: "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time." Now, over to Fred and Phyllis.
Can you hear us?
We can.
Oh, boy. So there is a reason why I did the same chant 3 times. The first time was a more exuberant one. It's like a celebratory chant. The second one that we didn't hear during the meditation was more to draw us in and experience that particular ecstasy you get from that one chant. And this last one we're going to do right now is comes to us through the dances of universal peace. So it's designed to open your heart. So if you wanted to stand up and follow my movements, we could do this dance together. Same words, a little different tune, should be easy enough to pick up. Goes like this. You start with your hands in your heart, and you want to open up as much as you can. Goes like this. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhi swaha. 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 6. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhi swaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, Swaha. Is that 8? Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. One more time. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha.
And now I invite you to sing with our choir as we extinguish our chalice.
Although our chalice has been darkened, we hold the fire within our own hearts.
Blessings of the soft, quiet morning to you. Blessing of the green summer leaves to you. Blessings of the warm morning tea to you. Blessings of a simple day to you. Let each moment bless you, the ray of sunlight, the pain of a lost love, a hard phone call, a soft breeze. And slowly let these blessings allow you to bless the children in your care, the neighbors in your surround, the friends that you love, the family that you've bonded with, until you become these blessings.
Thank you, Wayne. For those of you who do not wish to join a breakout room, thank you for joining us today. Everyone who remains here will be asked to join a breakout room. Today, in your breakout room, your challenge is to share the story of a mystical experience you've had. Or if you prefer, you can just stay in the meeting by saying later to the request to join the breakout room. Our minister or staff member will be there to talk to and respond to questions you may have. Neighborhood used to have a tradition of circling around and holding each other's hands. Instead, go to gallery view, unmute yourself, and together, looking into each other's eyes, let us say namaste, which means I salute the sacred spirit within you.
Namaste.
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 Thank you so much.
Namaste.
The breakout rooms will be started in just a minute or two. Mike?